Ačiū labai. Aš tuoj kviesiuos ekspertų.
So thank you very much. I will be inviting experts because I cannot be the all-knowing person. But I will start from mentioning that there are so many experts of our field, and we all see that approaching cost crisis is greatly affecting our transport, not only in the field of air or roads, but also air, railway, sea. And we see that in all areas of transportation things are quite bad, and we don't understand what it could be, whether shortage of drivers or airplanes or stuck logistic chains, or maybe, as many already said, incorrectly planned production. And now is production for costs, or maybe countries are selected in the wrong way. And although on the other hand we have quite bright prospects for future, because we are a small country with much less bureaucracy, very well developed logistics infrastructure. We have sea, we have railways, we have very good modern logistic warehouses with excellent operators, and we start using air possibilities much more than previously. So air logistics, I mean, where we more and more can deliver goods, commodities bought in e-shops or commodities which are needed here now. And what else do we see? On the other side of the wall, our partners are speaking about more and more new good solutions plus mile. So I think that we are a good country for that last mile to work out. So I would like to say, well, generalizing, and we'll get over to road transport, that Lithuania is a very good territory to develop logistical solutions, not only for our country or for our transit. Although, as we heard in the speech of one of the ministers, we had to be a bridge, but it so happened that all our contacts were left on that other side. So we should be that brain, source of knowledge, and we should bring all of that to Europe to multiply our businesses, which are doing quite successfully, and I'm very happy with that. But that our road traffic, land traffic moves better, that it is more effective, and we know how to plan. We have to collaborate with the European Union. We do have to do the same with the European Commission. And I will now get over to English language, and I would like to invite now onto the stage Raluca Marian. So when we generalized what she should be, so I just that she is a director of IRU, responsible for the legal base in Brussels. So I said, so Raluca, you are our ears, our mouth, and sometimes even the brain in the European Union in Brussels. She confirmed that.
Introduce you and to ask to come on stage. Raluca Mariana, this is our ears, brain sometimes, and eyes. So please, Raluca, I would like to give you some stage, but if you let me, I will stay there because I'm in transport, in road transport. This year is 20th year, so I'm 20 years in road transport and started in early 2002 like a road transport manager. I was loading groupage cargos from France and I stayed there. So road is for me very important, so I would like to hear what you are doing, why you are doing, and what of targets we are putting to you.
First of all, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You won't see a presentation because we are a dynamic sector and I should be the reflection of that sector. So if you just follow me, that's enough. I'm happy to hear that you've been for 20 years in the sector. It means there must be something attractive in this sector. attractiveness of the sector is something we are confronted with quite a lot because, as many of you may know, we are having a very important lack of drivers. But I'm not going to talk about drivers, that's something else. I'm going to focus today on some challenges and solutions and what we have on the table in Brussels. And we have a lot on the table in Brussels at the moment, both in social aspects, environmental aspects, digitalization aspects, a lot of legislation coming, a lot of reforms, and this will set the future of transport. So the future of transport is being discussed these very days. But today I'm going to focus on environment and decarbonization. And there are three preconditions. We've heard today quite a lot about decarbonization already, but I would just like to summarize the three preconditions which our sector see as essential in order to switch to alternative fuel vehicles. First, availability of infrastructure. Infrastructure for charging the new vehicles. We heard it already from Scania. I don't see her now in the room, but we heard it before. So it's not something new, it's just a summary what I'm going to say here. So yesterday, the European Parliament adopted its position on alternative fuels infrastructure. And this is a very important development for us, because without having this precondition met, without having a rolled out infrastructure across the EU, our sector can't switch to alternative fueled vehicles. But what we are also confronted with is a less ambitious vision of the Council. As you may know, there are two legislators on EU level, the Parliament and the Council. So now we have a conflict. We have an ambitious Parliament supporting the industry, supporting the infrastructure, and the less ambitious Council, which tries to push further the deadlines, stating that those new vehicles are not there yet. So we have a little bit of a chicken and the egg problem. So we can only call for governments to support that, especially countries like Lithuania and other Baltic countries. You have to cross Europe to go to the West. You need this infrastructure. If cities are going to close, if highways are going to close and only accept certain types of vehicles, you need your fleets to be equipped with these vehicles, and you need this infrastructure all along the way in order to be able to move them. Second, vehicles. Availability of vehicles, alternative fueled vehicles, in sufficient numbers. There are 7 million heavy-duty vehicles in the EU now. Out of this, around 96% are diesel fueled currently. I'm not even talking about electricity or hydrogen, because they are there really in very, very small numbers at the moment. So the ambitions are high and we want to change. But these vehicles have to come. They have to be there and they have to be in sufficient numbers. For the heavy-duty vehicles, especially like the big trucks, as you know, the 40-ton trucks, or we saw today 70-ton trucks, or 75 or even 80, we saw the logs in an 80-ton truck. We are very far from there. So I'll go in a minute to the types of technologies we see for the future, but that's definitely a challenge. And the last precondition is affordability, or let's call it incentive. Assuming those vehicles were there, and they were there in sufficient numbers, we are businesses. We need incentives. We need a reason to buy those vehicles. Of course, decarbonization, but people also have to live. And then they need to be supported to do that. And we don't mean support only by money. So, of course, states' budgets are limited. So we can't, no member state can have infinite resources to subsidize the procurement of these vehicles. But there can be also smart incentives through taxation, even through the emission trading scheme. These are also pieces of legislation on the EU table at the moment. But unfortunately, the direction we see now in this legislation is not ideal. And they come more like a kind of punishment for the sector, introducing higher taxation and higher charges at a moment when we do not have the alternatives ready yet. So, ETS, emission trading scheme, 26 cents additionally per liter of diesel. Because, what's the rationale of this legislation? Because we should change and we should take the newer vehicles which are electric or hydrogen. But as I said, for the high range, so for the 40-ton trucks or more, we don't have them. So then what does it mean 26 cents per liter if it comes too early? It means it's a sanction. It's a punishment when we can't change. So incentives, taxation, subsidies as well, a mixture of everything, but at the right moment. So now I'm just going to move to the last part, which is what alternatives? I said alternative fueled vehicles. We heard today from one speaker from IEA, I think, that the biggest concern is the gasoline that he or we have to put in our cars. I would say not. The biggest concern is that we have food on the shelves, that we have products on the shelves. So having a continuity of the supply chain is the biggest concern. And this brings me to options. We need options. So today the 7 million vehicles are fueled by diesel, 96%. If we want in the shorter or longer future all of them to be powered by only one technology, don't we take a risk which is a little bit too high to bear? We are talking about independence, multiple sources. We are talking about security of the supply chains. How can we have security of supply chains if we only bet on one new, untested to a large extent technology? So what we are asking for in the future as a sector is 3 options. And not only in the transitional period, but also longer term. And these are electric battery vehicles, hydrogen-fueled vehicles, and combustion engine vehicles based on carbon-neutral fuels. Because that's what we are all hoping for, carbon neutrality. We want decarbonization, right? We don't want just to push a technology. We want decarbonization. So why does it matter? Why should it matter the way we reach that decarbonization? And just to give you a very quick example to end with, in France, nowadays, there is a big strike of refineries. And they don't have diesel anymore, or not enough. There are transport operators in France who stopped, they parked their trucks because they don't have diesel. Our members in France are talking to their government saying logistics chains, they are essential. You should prioritize logistics chains when it comes to fuels. They don't get it. The government doesn't prioritize them. It says, no, you are competing with all the other industries. So are we essential or aren't we essential? In COVID times, we were essential. When we have this example, and just hopefully it's a short example because it's just the strikes of the refinery, but we are fearing an energy crisis. We are fearing shortages. We have a war. So why aren't we clear? Why aren't governments clear? This sector, the movers of the economy, are an essential sector and they deserve preferential treatment because of the security of the supply chains. And that should be clear on a national level but also on a EU level. This is one of the next things we are fighting for.
Raluca, you mentioned several things what we are covering. First of all, we are talking in this forum a lot about digitalization. IRU is responsible of millions of trucks, thousands of companies. Could you please tell us the main, 1, 2 tasks, what you have in Brussels to cover for us, for our transport, for our logistic companies? Now,
on digitalization.
You talked a lot about the petrol. You talked about electricity, but I know, like, how to tell right, like a responsible person in transport and logistics sector, I know that digitalization can do a lot. We have FT, we have other solutions, yes? Are you doing with that things what we should be prepared?
I started my speech by saying that there are a lot of files on the Brussels table and social digitalization and environment. We have very little time to focus on all of them, so until now it was environment, but digitalization is definitely the way to the future. And before even thinking of grand solutions, we are just thinking of something very elementary, which we actually even heard from Marius, from your minister, and that's paperless cabins. It sounds simple, paperless cabins. Nowadays, we are going with papers like that.
We counted 90 papers he should fill during all the process of delivery.
Exactly. And Marius mentioned one legislation, which is already there, but it has to be implemented. And from having a piece of legislation to implementation, there can be a very long way, longer than for a truck to go from the east to the west, right? So that's called EFTI, the Electronic Freight Transport Documents. But this doesn't cover everything. So we heard Lithuania's ambitious plans, and also in collaboration with neighbors, to have this implemented even before the deadline by 2024. So we know that at least part of the 90 documents will be digitalized. But these are not all. There are further opportunities. Like, for example, the technical inspection. This another document, right? So every year, also with the private cars, we go to the technical inspection, and I hear from Julius, I hear that in Lithuania that's electronic.
But we when still have the green paper in
but you still have the green paper, because when you cross the border in the European Union,
we can't access our database.
Exactly. So that's also the role for the EU. Make everything electronic. Paperless cabins by 2030. This is one goal which is set by the Commission itself, by the European Commission, in its Strategy for Sustainable and Smart Mobility, published 2 years ago. So we would like to see that, and we are working on that too.
Raluca, thank you very much. I know that we can talk about road transport, I don't know,
for a long time.
during all the day. Raluca will stay, so who have questions, please do not hesitate, contact with her, please ask. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.